As I said, it is so wonderful to see you all. And I'm so excited to talk you through an update on the situation in Australia and New Zealand now that we are racing towards reopening soon. As you all know, COVID hit and almost immediately the Australian and New Zealand borders were slammed shut in an effort to keep the virus from our shores. And from there commenced an extended period of extreme uncertainty in the travel industry that each and every one of us has been navigating ever since. Some of you had to pause your investments down under, while others made the brave commitment to continue to nurture the market and keep yourselves in the best possible position for the rebound. But regardless of what the situation is, for absolutely everyone, there was a drastic and immediate change and absolutely no Australian and New Zealand visitors. Now, after countless sleeps, redundancies, furloughs, planning and replanning, doing and undoing, I'm so pleased to finally be able to say that the next chapter is about to begin. The purpose of this presentation is really to help you to understand where we currently are. Yes, we'll go through a bit of what we've been through just to give you the context from the Australian New Zealand perspective, but where are we currently? What's the current state of the industry and media, the sentiment of the people, the economy, and the other factors that will help to shape the rebound? Of course, we need to start with a little bit of fun. So let's make our Gate 7 COVID babies. Here's Sophie and her family with their beautiful new baba, Rafaela. Mel and her 2 COVID babies, big boy Brady, and as of just last week, she welcomed the beautiful Olive May, Vanessa and the lovely Adeline, and finally, like many of you, I'm sure there's furry additions to the family, meet Tony's wonderful rescue dog, cute little Murphy Brown. And then like everyone in the travel industry, our team at Gate 7 has undergone significant changes, but I'm really pleased to say we've maintained the full range of our skills and capabilities. So let me introduce you to our current team. On the trade and consumer marketing side, we have our dynamos, Penny Brand, Paula Savios and Melanie Becknell. And on the PR and content side, we have our word wizards, Tori Goddard, Sophie Taylor and Tony Long. And finally, we're really lucky to have kept our very talented finance director, Phoebe. We're of course in constant contact with all of our ex-Gate 7ers and they send you huge hugs and kisses. And are actually all doing really well. They've all settled into new jobs and you know, life is good. They're all fine. Okay, so let's start by taking stock of the current situation down under. There's no doubt that Australia and New Zealand have both taken very conservative approaches to the management of COVID. And as we've heard, an integral part of that has been the closure of international borders. For much of the pandemic, the aim has essentially been suppression of the virus, pushing towards COVID zero. We've had super strict lockdowns, we were slow on the vaccine rollout, and there was a frustrating lack of dialogue about navigating a pathway out of COVID. Finally, in August, a national plan was laid out that once 80% of Australians have been double vaccinated, we will begin to open up. The narrative began to change and the dialogue rapidly turned towards vaccination as our way out and learning to live with COVID going forward. The rolling out of that national plan had real impact. We knew things were finally turning when Qantas then launched their heart-wrenching brand campaign, breaking months on end of silence from them. I'm going to share with you that ad campaign that literally had the whole nation weeping.
It's okay, look, yeah, I'm going to see you soon, okay? Love you.
Is that you, Mum?
It's a younger version of me.
Mum, can we go to Disneyland?
I've been on my own for a minute. Is it only me out there? Searching for the place to begin it. Is it me? Is it you? Is it me?
Bloody expired.
So where are you headed? Singapore for a wedding. Taking the kids to Disneyland Resort.
London, going to see someone very special to me.
Hey guys.
Have fun, you two. Try stop us. Ah, that's the spirit.
'Cause I had a dream that someday I would just fly away.
Here comes the bride. I've got just the place for this.
So I had to
Gorgeous.
dream that I'd just fly away.
What's the start, Jimmy? We have to take off.
Why would take
Oh,
off?
I fly away. And I always always knew I couldn't stay.
We'll be there soon.
So I had a dream that I'd just fly away.
I was sitting on the couch bawling my eyes out the first time I saw that. It was just so exciting to see something inspiring on TV. And on the tail of this inspiring message, Qantas then also released flights commencing December. Australians promptly responded with strong increases in search and immediate booking activity. And then on Friday just been, the moment we have all been waiting for. 560 days after closing Australian borders off to the world, the Australian Prime Minister announced plans to resume international travel next month. From sometime in November, essentially all international travel restrictions will be lifted. Within an hour, Qantas announced earlier dates for the recommencement of the international routes, bringing forward the start date from late December to mid-November, and from there planning to incrementally build out their international network again over the following months. I cannot tell you how exciting it is to have finally reached this point. In New Zealand, it's also finally starting to move forward. Just last week, the New Zealand Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, essentially abandoned the COVID zero goal, recognising for the first time that the Delta strain really doesn't work with COVID zero, and that with vaccines now available in plentiful supply, it's time to navigate the way forward. Their plan is to reach 90+ vaccination rates and thereby essentially achieve herd immunity in order to open up. The likely timeframe that this will be achieved is December to January, and Air New Zealand is set to come back with international flights from 1st of February. Now, I know for many of you around the world, reaching 80% and 90% vaccination rates just seems completely over the top, but we are small nations and we're surprisingly compliant nations, and we are catapulting towards those numbers now. So we're really confident we're going to get there. So, my dear friends, it's imminent. Australia will be open next month, marking the end of 20 months of closed borders, with New Zealand to follow sometime early next year. I know this has lasted much, much longer than any of us could have wanted or could have possibly anticipated, but finally now we're being rewarded. The moment has come. Our phones are ringing, our inboxes are full. It's really exciting. Industry is being onboarded back into roles. We're getting calls from industry daily, and everybody really is just planning for the rebound. So it's on for young and old. And as you know, our two nations punch well above their weight in terms of outbound travel. We've got 20 days annual leave a year, a wealthy population, a broad international heritage, and our countries exhibit amongst the world's highest propensities to travel internationally. Economically, we're in a great place. The Australian economy has fared well throughout the pandemic. Australians hold nearly $2 billion in travel credits, and we have unprecedented levels of personal savings. So all of this provides a great foundation for the rebound of travel once confidence is re-established. And while there's huge pent-up demand across the globe, it really is a completely another level of that from Australia and New Zealand, because we have been starved of basically of all travel. It's not just the USA or you know, parts of Asia or Europe that we haven't been able to travel to. We've literally, other than a couple of months where our borders have been open to each other between Australia and New Zealand, we've literally been starved of travel to everywhere. And even within our own countries, for much of the pandemic, state borders have been closed on and off. So yeah, a really high level of pent-up demand. Where will we want to travel to? Well, it really seems there's opportunity for everybody to have a little piece of the pie. Yesterday, Expedia shared these statistics with me on Australian search and bookings from the past 8 weeks. As you can see, there's a really broad range of destinations across the world that have been researched and booked. And it's really interesting to be able to look at this, because these figures aren't influenced too much by major marketing investments, as you can imagine. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity to reshape this in the coming months. We know historically Australians have had amongst the highest world's propensity to cruise, and that hasn't changed. 26% of Aussies are planning on cruising in the next 5 years. Bookings are extending forward way into 23 and 24. And according to Flight Centre, cruise inquiries have been increasing by about 40% month on month since June, when the narrative really started to change. In terms of other trends we're seeing and what people will want when they travel, well, based on consumer sentiment studies, as well as extrapolating the trends that were already in place prior to COVID, here's what we think is going to be most important. Organised travel. So people are wanting help in making life simple. Booking organised travel allows for uncomplicated booking procedures. If something needs to be changed, it's like one phone call, and it also alleviates worries around having to navigate changing rules and difficult rules across various regions. So we are seeing an increased demand for organised travel. Of course, Aussies love the intimate connections, connecting with locals and living like a local, essentially understanding other ways of life. And especially now that we've been restricted to our own shores for so long, this is going to be even more of a driver. Connection and reconnection is a massive theme. So people feel like their wings have been clipped, like they've missed out on all sorts of birthday and anniversary celebrations. And we're looking for ways to anchor these experiences in your destinations, which will be really powerful. And of course, not surprisingly, during a pandemic, with lots of time in lockdown, people are craving a sense of freedom and wide open spaces. And then across all sectors, there's definitely been an increase in focus on high-end and exclusive travel. So onto the travel industry landscape. Obviously, the travel industry has gone through enormous change and upheaval throughout the pandemic. So let's take a look at where we've landed. Well, there's no question there's been enormous impact with massive resource losses. Within the retail sector, about a third of the industry has been wiped out, with 15,000 travel agency jobs completely disappearing. Many of the agents are still underemployed or juggling multiple jobs. Still others have moved to a mobile travel agent model where they have essentially continued to service their closest clients and become their own small business with the flexibility that those work hours allow them. However, despite all of this, when it's all said and done, and our biggest players across both retail and wholesale are still in place. Looking at our two biggest players, Flight Centre and Helloworld, there's quite a different story to tell, mostly shaped by the difference in their two models. While both companies have suffered a huge reduction in the overall number of agents, Flight Centre has consolidated its retail offering, the physical offering, and gone through a significant reduction in actual stores, while Helloworld has managed to maintain the majority of the stores, given that they're actually owner-operated and owned by individual business owners. So those individuals have shepherded their long-term investments and maintained their presence. But of course, they as well, where previously they may have employed 15 agents, currently they've employed 3 or 4. So both agency groups have lost a lot of agents, but the physical footprint of Helloworld has remained for the most part. This isn't necessarily going to be a reflection of changes in market share. I think it's interesting and worth noting that Flight Centre has financial stability from business that's been able to be transacted around the world, whereas Helloworld is more limited to transacting down under. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how these two players fight it out as things come back. The upshot of the massive upheaval in the retail segment is that there are many, many less agents, but those who remain tend to be the more quality agents. They're the business owners, the educated, the hugely passionate ones who have held in there, the ones with their own well-established client bases. Many of these agents in this category have moved to a mobile structure, working independently from home and catering directly to their own client base. There will, of course, for all of us, be a massive challenge in the coming 6 months, coping with the volume of work as agencies try to recruit agents back into the industry or train new people up. And of course, even for those who have been in the industry for a long time, each client is going to be so much more time consuming for them with so many moving parts with regards to protocols, rules and procedures. It's a bit of a nightmare for them, and it's definitely a priority for us to be able to help them with that as much as we possibly can, which will put all of you in a really good place to be prioritised. Another really significant area of evolution in the industry over the course of the pandemic has been the adoption of technologies and partnerships to create increased distribution. Again, our two major partners, Flight Centre and Helloworld, have each adopted technology that enables them to integrate different systems such as Hotelbeds, Expedia, Bonotel, ATI and WebBeds onto one platform, which essentially, in a nutshell, allows agents access to more product without the need for the direct wholesale contracting. Flight Centre have additionally contracted with Travello, which gives them a huge access to a range of activities from around the world, catering, of course, to this growing demand for experiences. The upshot of all of this is that there's an increase in accessibility to the product, but also a growing need to help agents curate and bundle this product to make sense of it all. Obviously, airlift and air access into and out of Australia and New Zealand is vitally important to the rebound. And while it's so exciting that things are opening up next month, it's obviously not just a matter of, turning back on again overnight. Staff need to be rehired and retrained. Whole ecosystems need to be redeveloped. So the coming months will see airlines begin to ramp up their presence and services again, initially consolidating traffic from across Australia through Sydney and Melbourne. And over time, they will increase frequencies to meet demand. Just as with the travel industry, of course, the media in Australia and New Zealand have been hugely impacted by the pandemic. As you can imagine, with borders closed shut, there was a humongous impact on travel media. Advertising dollars nosedived, and the public narrative was completely guided by the news cycle, leaving travel stories, for the most part, feeling inappropriate. We've really had to get creative to figure out how to weave travel stories into the narrative. A number of travel publications shut down altogether, while volume of those remaining shrunk significantly, and we estimate the overall value of travel-related content reduced by about 80%. As a result, freelancers were out of work, many editorial staff were stood down and found themselves writing about new topics, which required us to shift our strategy from securing pure travel stories into landing unique lifestyle pairings, sharing recipes, and getting tight with podcasters to generate coverage. However, the really exciting thing is the instant and complete turnaround we're experiencing here in Australia as we speak. So as we've seen, the opening up just accelerate and the national plan laid out, culminating in Friday's announcement it will be open next month, the travel media industry has done a complete turnaround. They're accepting media calls, they're hungry for content and news, advertising dollars are catapulting, and travellers are hungry to plan again. So the ramp up is well and truly here. Of course, it's not all going to be smooth sailing as the media boost travel content to meet this demand. They still have staff to onboard. Of course, the most powerful tool for quality coverage is media farms, and they're going to take a little while to get going again because of staff shortages, but also holdups that we're expecting with things like processing journalist visas and so forth. But it's all happening. And of course, there's also an immediate explosion of competition as every destination vies to carve out their portion of the recovery. So it's a really interesting landscape. So what will the return to travel look like? What will be the important factors for us all to consider? And there's some really interesting challenges for us to be thinking through. I know also around the world, but obviously also here in Australia. I think the first thing to acknowledge is that with such a long break and many paradigm shifts along the way, selling international travel is almost like launching a brand new product. Travel itself is not going to be the same, at least not for a while. And of course, there are some people, the innovators and the early adopters, who will move almost immediately, regardless of the situation. They're just hanging to get out there and they're like, I'm going to make this work. But beyond that, there's absolutely no doubt that the complexity of things like vaccination requirements, processes, protocols, and just a general nervousness about what will it be like needs to be addressed so that we can catapult, this demand into conversion as quickly as possible. Let's think first of all about who the early movers will be, because obviously they're the first people for us to focus on. Looking at all the different markets research out there, including Qantas search details and many industry discussions that we've been a part of, the key segments that are likely to move first are these. So obviously the VFR market, who can't wait to reconnect with friends and family they haven't seen for nearly 2 years. Travellers without children. So the vaccination pathways and the restraints of things like school holidays mean that the family market will take a little longer to recover. So maybe it's more like 6 months before they're starting to come back. The statistics are showing that those in their early careers, as well as the empty nesters, are more likely to come forth first. High income earners are indexing higher even than they normally do in the Qantas search results. And of course, there's a big portion of people who work from home, and they're more likely to not see the quarantine requirements as an impediment for travel. Obviously, we're working through the quarantine requirements and we see those reducing over time. There's so much discussion in space, but that initial early movers, the people who work from home anyway, it's really not going to be that much of a impediment. But for the next segment of travellers, after the early movers, we've got a lot of work to do. Desire to travel is absolutely strong. The confidence has been shaken. Like if we look far enough in advance, forward bookings are really good because people, you know, if they leave it for a year and then they book, they feel confident that everything will be sorted out by then. So those bookings are looking really good. But in order to get everything up for those months in between, we really need to address and help them understand what it's going to be like. They need to understand the protocols and procedures. They need to know that if they do book and need to change it, it's not going to be an issue. There's essentially just a lot of work to do in this space. So we have a hugely important and exciting task ahead. We need to be working hard hand in hand with our media and trade partners to facilitate this education, to bring back the inspiration and drive people back to your destinations as quickly as possible. And our work in that space will be more important than ever. One of the biggest challenges in assisting and servicing the trade and media will be to remain cognizant of their fast changing needs. You know, they'll be short staffed. Lots of the historic intelligence is gone. They'll have tighter budgets to begin with at least. And they're going to be working with people and destinations that make it easiest for them. So of course, we will make sure that that is what we do. I'm just going to stop sharing the screen now so I can sort of come back to you. Just sort of reassure you that like everyone else in the industry, of course, as Gate 7, we've been putting a lot of thought into our preparation for the imminent ramp up. We want to make sure that you're all in safe hands. We've heavily invested in building out our resource centre, which serves our trade and media partners with great flexibility. We've been maintaining our relationships and creating new ones as the industry and media are being onboarded. And we've been, you know, these new partnerships are giving us a boost in terms of data and insights and B2B, B2C capabilities. So I feel confident that our foundations are solid. Looking into the future, obviously the biggest question mark is resourcing. And we really need to want to understand where you're at and how things look for you so that we can be prepared and resource right in advance and sort of, you know, not get stuck with that. So certainly I'll be reaching out to you in the coming weeks, days, months, not months, weeks, days, to address that and to discuss that with you to make sure that we're on the pulse there. So I am now back and I can see the chat. I'd like to thank everybody for joining. I'll send you all a link to this recording in case you would like it, and also to see if we can hook up a time to connect with you. And I'm just going to cast my eyes over to the chat and see if there's anything that we need. Do we know if Disney paid to be part of the spot? We don't know. I haven't actually discussed that with Disney. I don't believe so because I've had discussions with them and they haven't brought it up, but I can certainly find out for you. Australia hit the 80% first dose vaccination target yesterday. Yes, that's true. Very exciting. And everything else is just hellos. That's very nice. Guys, it's been really great to be able to share this with you. I will be reaching out, as I said, and so excited to be actually talking real stuff. Thank you to everybody who has stuck with us through this period. We will be forever grateful to you, and it really will make a difference. It has made a difference, and we're making sure that we're maximising that. And for anybody who hopes to be coming back soon, also obviously looking forward to welcoming you back with open arms. Thank you, my friends, and we shall speak soon. Bye.